We are here in Orlando at the Orange County Convention Center, joined by the general manager of the Maine Celtics. He really wears many hats. Jarell, former head coach of the Maine Celtics. You've also worked with the NBA club pretty frequently, making his way back and forth, Boston and Maine, but he's at the Expo a ton, and he's here this weekend. So, Jarell, how are you? Great to see you.
No, I'm great. It feels good to be back. I was just talking to some of my colleagues. This is my actual 10th G League showcase, so it's always good to come back and see some people that I haven't seen in a while. But I was back in the showcase days when it was the D League, and I believe our first one was in Santa Cruz. So it's been a while.
10, and this has been going on for 20 years.
Yeah.
So you've been to half of them.
Yeah. Thanks for the reminder. But yeah.
Jarell, so that would be with Oklahoma City, capital city in Maine.
Yep.
Right? That all adds up.
And obviously it's like you just mentioned, different roles,
Yeah.
but it's always great to kind of see everybody come and put their best foot forward in terms of, those players trying to make the jump to get a call up or an overseas contract. So it's always good to see everybody, come out and try to make a name for themselves.
As far as your role is concerned as general manager, what's your mindset when this comes up on the calendar and you're here for the 4 or 5 days that you're here?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I just try to be the best supporter of our coaching staff that I can be. Obviously the players, they've got a lot of frustration. They've got a lot of things that are coming into this situation depending on how the season's going. Some players may want more opportunity in terms of minutes. Some players may want bigger roles. So just trying to make sure that I can be with the coaching staff and kind of help those guys in the mindset of the team altogether, because it's, high stakes. The players want to come out and play well. Some guys, like I just mentioned, are looking for two-way contracts or call-ups. So naturally, it's the human emotion of the showcase. It's a stressful environment for a lot of players and a lot of people. So just making sure that I can support the players and the coaches in that regard. And the thing I've just kind of talked to our coaches about is more so of the mindset of the team in terms of just helping one another. The way to get on anybody's radar is to be a good teammate, right? And the way you can become a good teammate is, even when it's not your time to shine, still being there to support your teammate. And celebrating each other's successes is always something that stands out in the minds of scouts.
And we noticed that in your run last year to the finals, just the celebratory nature of your team. Jordan Shackle being around, I thought was a really revealing quality about him, just being supportive of the guys. And that's the hope, to get back there for the Maine Celtics. When you look at this event and where you guys are at now, 14 games in, 6-8, you'll open up against College Park tonight. What do you make of your team? How do you feel about the team so far?
I like our team. I think we've got a lot of talent. We've got a lot of guys who've spent some time in the G League. A lot of guys, like I said, I think they're still on the rise of their career, and a lot of guys that I think are putting a lot of stock into how they perform this weekend. Right? I think so far we've probably underperformed in some areas, but I also think the emergence of some guys at the back of our roster have played well. So I just think it's going to be a really good weekend for our guys to kind of find their groove. And I think it will be a great weekend for our coaching staff to find their identity as a team.
JD's off to an unbelievable start. Top 5 in the league in scoring and assists, impacting winning, end of games. He's been your rock. What can you say about JD? Because now you've seen him really from the beginning here. Like, 22 years old, he's a 3-year veteran of the G League.
Yeah, I think the next step for his growth and his development is, the leadership component, and it's not necessarily the box score or the stats. Obviously, that's a big part of it, but it's, how is he leading off the floor? Is he showing up one time? Is he leading by example? Is he doing all those things that, are transferable to the next level, because the fact of the matter is, if you're at the end of a bench or end of a roster in the NBA and you're showing up late, or you're not being a good teammate, or any of those things, you're not going to stick long. And one thing we've always talked about at the G League level is having longevity. It's good to get a call up or a 10-day, but you really want to stick with an NBA program, and that's something that the leadership qualities that JD's has shown over the last couple of seasons. His maturation process has been great to see, and I'm just happy for him.
Where do you think he's grown the most? Leadership?
I would just say his comfort level on the floor. You know,
Yeah.
his
I guess that
rookie
could go
year.
either way, basketball or off the floor.
Yeah, you know, I think his leadership on the floor in terms of just being more comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, obviously his first year with us, he was coming off the bench, you know, as a two-way. And so he handled that well. And last year he got a little bit more opportunity. And this year he's just, you know, I think he's on a hunt to show that he's one of the best point guards in the G League.
Other players to discuss, you know, and JD's been very out and open about that too, just wanting to be, you know, at some point be a pro on a standard deal, and he's working his tail off for it. Drew Peterson, we just talked to him before this. Pretty incredible what he's been up to. You know, he's been here for a year. You signed him to a two-way like just about this time last year, so he's been with Boston for a year. And the whirlwind he's kind of been through, but the way he's handled it, a 5-year college player and rotation minutes with Boston. How do you feel he's handled all of it?
Yeah, he's been really influential on our team, just in terms of how he's handled, like you just said, going back and forth. You know, the life of a two-way is tough, you know, and I don't think a lot of people understand how tough it can be. You know,
he just told me how he now packs 3 extra pairs of clothes,
and
without even knowing if he's going to a different city.
Yeah,
he's just instinctually doing that now.
And you know, the conversations with myself and Brad in Boston and the rest of the medical team, you know, there's several situations where he's got to be on call, and he doesn't even know it. And so I've got to be the one to kind of deliver that message to him. Might be after a game that, hey, in the morning you're flying to go meet Boston wherever they are. So he's handled that part of it, you know, great. I think it's just something, again, it's unpredictable and it can be challenging. And the thing that I've found to be the most complicated for guys in his position, you know, all those two ways, is more so of, you know, you get into a groove in the G League and you get into a groove of playing with your teammates and practices, and you get into that routine, and then it's kind of broken and you have to go and play in an NBA game for a night or two, and then you have to try to find your footing again back with your G League teammates in the program. So that's probably the toughest part for those guys, but you know, he gets to do it. That's a, you know, a privilege that he has in being a two-way.
Right, and it's the privilege of being a pro basketball player, right? But it's the mental toll, I think, is more so. And I'm just your point about folks not understanding what that must mean, and then different personnel. Never mind and then there's the basketball part with different personnel and how to fit in. He was explaining how defensive assignment or being a catch and shoot guy when you're out there with Tatum or Brown. So for Drew Peterson, now he's played in about almost 10 games with Boston this year, and some games with a lot of high leverage minutes. What does he need to work on in Maine to then apply to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that our organization values is obviously impacting winning. But, you know, the ways that you can do that, the things that I think are valued at both Maine and in Boston is, can you defend? Right? Can we rely on you to be a good on-ball defender, but also positionally know where you need to be? And the second part of that is, can you make open shots? You know, and I think being here, you're going to get a lot of open shots with, you know, JD having the ball in his hands a good amount. He's going to find you in spots for you to be successful. Can you shoot the ball and make shots confidently? And then when you're in Boston, the same thing. You're playing alongside Tatum and Brown. You're probably going to get a lot more open shots as well. So those are the two things, in my opinion, is can you defend and can you make open shots?
Mm-hmm. And in making open shots, you can space the floor.
Absolutely.
And your spacing's been there are moments, you know, when there was a lineup out there when Walsh was here last week. He had 2 assignment guys and then 3 two-ways. With Anton Watson, who I wanted to discuss next, who's really proved there's a lot of layers to his game that have yet to be really uncovered.
Yeah.
Going back to his time at Gonzaga. But I'm sure when yourself at this point now, but when Brad's making that decision with the rest of the basketball folks in the front office, Anton, in my opinion, has an opportunity to be really special in this organization looking down the road. What do you think of Anton so far in his rookie season?
Yeah, I love Anton. He's a great teammate. You know, I think the versatility that he brings that you were just speaking of is special, you know, and I think it's just going to be a matter of him finding ways to continue to impact the game on both ends, you know. His switchability on defense is going to be important, you know, and that's an area that he's probably got to continue to grow and develop at, is being a little bit more comfortable in trusting his feet and guarding point guards at either level, but also, you know, not necessarily being a rim protector, but being able to protect the rim by just being in the right positions. So I think he's just going to continue to figure that part of the game out. And obviously, like I said, when he's catching and shooting the ball confidently and making shots, he's a dynamic player as well.
He was saying that he watches Al Horford closely offensively, and then he watches Kata defensively.
Yeah. And then obviously having Big Nemi last year and working with him closely, that's something that he's shown throughout every year of his G League career, is just being able to defend the rim at a high level. As an MVP candidate all those years back in Stockton. And again, I don't think a lot of people understand the grind and the process that goes into it. Everybody sees Nemi as what he was doing last year for the Boston Celtics, but they forget that he was, in Stockton playing in the G League for basically 2 years and trying to figure it out there. So it's not just you want to be great, it's not just going to happen overnight. It's a process, and you have to stay true to that process. And those guys who stick with the rhythm and stick with the routine and hold true to that process are the ones that usually find the most success at the end of it.
Yeah, even the snippets of Jaden Springer when he gets his opportunity. He was a playoff MVP in the G League not too long ago either.
Exactly. And so it's always trying to find those things that are transferable between the two leagues. And defense is usually one of those things that, if you can defend in the G League, you can defend at the NBA, and it transfers a little bit.
We have Jarell Christian joining us here, general manager of the Maine Celtics in his third season. 10 out of 20 showcases he's been to, so he's been at this for a long time. How about the rest of your team? Ron Harper, Jay Scrubb, you mentioned some guys with some G League experience. They've been banged up with some injuries, Dmitros Kapintsev. So there's still, but then you've had some really bright spots too, like, Don Carey Jr. and what the meaning of development is in this league. Jordan Shackle's back for another year. What can you tell us about the kind of the surrounding cast here, Two-Ways, and and Baylor Shireman being here, of course, on assignment?
Yeah, I think, in putting this team together, obviously there are a lot of hands and a lot of influence from the Boston front office staff. The thought process was more so of having guys who have been on Two-Ways before, with Kapintsev, Ron Harper, Jay Scrubb. Those guys have been on Two-Ways. Shackle obviously has been had a cup of tea in the NBA as well. So it's those guys who are really trying to make a name for themselves and prove that they're deserving of an NBA contract. And it's going to be a matter of those guys, again, just finding their rhythm and being healthy. I think on paper we've got a really good team. It's probably a little bit better than what our record is right now.
Yeah.
But to your point, we've had a lot of injuries. We've had a lot of things, a lot of guys in and out of the lineup for different reasons. So I think it's just going to be a matter of us just sticking with the process and trying to get into a rhythm.
Tyler Lashbrook was in the Sixers organization for a number of years, was at Boston last year. And I'm sure, you mentioned your record of those 8 losses, 4 or 5 are close end-of-game situations, and I know we've heard that before at the NBA level, and now here we are. And Tyler specialized in that with Boston, but I'm sure, like Joe Mazzulla would say, he's looking at these end-of-games this is great for us in terms of, let's pick this apart. We can learn from this for the regular season going forward. How has Tyler been to you in your eyes, from your vantage point as a first-year head coach?
He's been great. He's been awesome to work with, and Tyler's side, I would say just being a first-time head coach before, you never really are prepared for those moments. You can.
Right, because you came to Maine after already being the head coach at Capital City.
Yes. So
you had that opportunity.
You think you're prepared.
Yeah.
You do all the edits and the film sessions, and you're up at night thinking about late game situations,
right,
and this is what we can do. But once you actually get in those moments, it's a little bit different. And it's different because of the timing of it. It's different because of, all the emotions that may have gone into the game, for the 47 minutes before leading up to that. And so you don't really get comfortable in those situations until you're kind of thrown into them. And that's something I've just, talked to Tyler about, and the rest of our coaching staff is yes, we've lost some couple games in overtime or last second shots. That's just going to help us, as long as we hit our stride in the middle of February, which we kind of did last year.
Right.
I think it's going to be a pretty good season for us again.
It was last year reminded me a lot of what Boston did a few years ago.
Yes.
In the 21-22 season.
Yeah.
Go to the finals.
And it's obviously frustrating to lose and lose in that fashion. But I do think if your group can stick together and everybody can continue to row in the same direction, it's going to be beneficial for us later in the season.
So we'll get you out on this, and of course, when we do sit-downs like this, I think it's beneficial for the fan, the folks that are trying to get a better understanding of the G League. But you're the connector in all this because you have conversations with Brad Stevens and Joe Mazzulla, and you kind of connect all the dots with Tyler, and then your great staff, Remy Cofield, Ashley Battle. From what you can share, what are those conversations like in terms of how to keep everything here in Maine, or now in this case in Orlando with Maine, to keep the symmetry and to keep the continuity going?
Yeah.
What role do you play in that?
So I've been extremely grateful and blessed that I've got a really good relationship with Joe Mazzulla. So he allows me to sit in on all the coaches' meetings there in Boston, and obviously being in the front office, I'm involved in all those front office meetings. So I kind of see it from both sides. I'm able to communicate to the coaching staff and Tyler some adjustments or changes that Boston's making or that they could see happening depending on different lineups and guys who are in and out. But I can also see it from the front office lens of, where guys are, maybe contractually or some things that guys are thinking about and conversations they're having with agents, and I think it just gives me a really good perspective on the whole, like you just mentioned. And the way that I kind of tie it all together is I just have open dialogue and communication with everybody. The agents, they all obviously want their clients to succeed at the highest level, and they all want their clients to play 35 plus minutes. And the coach in me says, it's not always going to happen. So it's more so of how you're performing in whatever minutes you get, and it could be a guy that comes in for a 2-minute stint to change the complexion of the game and bring some energy, and that's your job and that's your role on any given night. And how well can you do that? And so the way I kind of bring it all together is just obviously communications at the forefront, and just making sure that our entire group is on the same page of what the plan is. And a lot of times it happens in real time. We talked about the Drew Peterson situations, and someone could get sick in Boston, and all of a sudden we have to call one of these guys up. And so it's just making sure that the lines of communication are always open and everybody's on the same page. But it's a ton of moving parts that are happening in real time, as you can imagine.
Well, if you run into something this weekend, at least Boston's in Orlando on Monday.
Yes, they are.
But thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate it, because of anyone here, you're going to be talking to a lot of people this weekend, I would imagine, right? Because this is a big event for you to catch up with all the front office people.
Yes, it is. And as much as I'd much rather just sit in my room and watch games on TV, part of the job is getting out there and talking to other GMs and other front office members and gathering as much intel on their players as I can. So I'm excited for it.
All right, Jarell Christian, GM of the Maine Celtics. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.